What I'm about to tell you today is an extremely controversial opinion, or more of a prediction, based on what I see happening right now in the world, what's been happening over the past few years, and what I predict is going to happen over the next 5 years, right up until about 2030. Now, if you're new here, my name is Jordan, and this channel is all about achieving time, location, and financial freedom. And one of the ways to achieve that is to create online cash flow and then invest some of your money into high growth assets around the world. So that's what we talk about a lot on this channel. Now in this video, I want to tell you guys about a very controversial opinion and prediction, which is that I believe the Five Eyes countries and most of the Western world, including the countries in the European bloc, are going to start implementing global taxation laws just like the US does, and restricting a lot more of your freedoms in order to achieve those taxation laws. But the reason so many people are drawn to the idea of achieving location freedom and moving to different countries is because of all the different rules and regulations and policies and new laws and all this kind of stuff that is coming out right now in the Western world. And there are many examples of this. The UK and Australia right now are implementing different rules and regulations, not just for tax, but to curtail your freedoms, at least in my opinion. One such example is in Australia. Anyone under the age of 16 will not be allowed to use social media. Once they turn 16, they then have to prove who they are, their identity and their age. And a lot of people supported this. But now what we're seeing is that if you want to use Google in Australia, you have to show your identity. You have to prove that you are over age, which means that you have to input information about yourself just to use the internet. And there's currently a legal battle going on, or talk of a legal battle, between Google and the Australian government. But this is just one example. And I feel like these Western governments are going to start implementing more rules and regulations to restrict your freedom. For tax purposes, of course, because they want to stop so many people leaving the country. In the UK alone, they've seen massive amounts of capital flight. Millionaires are leaving the country. They're trying to live elsewhere. Many of them are going to Dubai, but I'm sure there's a lot of them going other places as well. And so these countries are noticing what's going on and realizing that they need to start taxing these individuals, just like in the US. Now, some people will argue in the EU, they don't have any direct taxation laws. Each country can do as they please, but you can already see this happening in that part of the world. And many of these countries seem to follow each other's lead. So the UK, for example, has been implementing laws on social media censorship. They're even thinking about or have already lowered the voting age, while Australia is looking at doing a very similar thing and is already restricting use of the internet, at least for people under the age of 16. But like I said earlier, if you're over the age of 16, you still have to verify yourself. Another example of these countries implementing certain rules and regulations to ensure that they can tax their citizens no matter where they live is a digital ID system. This is very similar to what China already has. And they're trying to implement it in the UK, Australia, I believe also in the US, now that there's new deals with the US government and Palantir. You see, the US government wants to use Palantir to be able to collect information on its citizens. And then by using that data and information, a digital ID can be implemented. Now, will it happen in the US? I don't know. I'm not working in government. I don't have access to those kind of networks. But if you look at what's happening in Australia and the UK and even parts of Europe, you can assume that the US is going to follow. I've heard this theory that Australia is used as a testing ground for the implementation of this technology. And I never used to believe it, but recently, Anthony Albanese, the Australian Prime Minister, went to China and he made sure that the Australian media wasn't there to be able to follow him around. And when he came back to Australia, he started talking about implementing facial recognition technology, something that will be combined with the digital ID system and online verification tools. Not long ago in the UK, they were testing this thing called 30-minute cities, where you're essentially restricted on where you can travel to. And there was so much backlash around this idea. Many people were destroying the CCTV cameras, the surveillance technology that the UK government was implementing in these areas as part of their testing process. And this idea has also been discussed in other levels of government throughout the world. Imagine being restricted on where you can travel to. I mean, how on earth are they going to enforce that? Sounds like a dystopian society. It will never happen. Well, it did during the pandemic, at least in Australia. You could only go to certain areas and go a certain distance away from your home. They've already been testing this around the world, guys. And so the digital ID system, the 30-minute cities, social media censorship and verification is all going to combine into one system. Very similar to how China has their digital ID system. If you're hanging out with the wrong people, if you do something bad against the rules, or even if you make a mistake, you'll get negative ticks against your name in this digital ID system, which will prevent you from traveling and doing certain things. Imagine having that in the UK, Australia, in the US, Canada. All this to me seems like a massive restriction of freedoms. Now, for sure, there'll be people watching this thinking that I'm talking a load of nonsense, but I'd love for you to do your own research and check it out for yourself. Just think critically about what is going on. Sometimes things happen in the world for governments to force through new rules, laws, and regulations. I remember after September 11th, when the Twin Towers got attacked, airport security just went through the roof. And now it's just a normal part of life. And we look at it and we view it as a necessary need. But the people who used to fly regularly before September 11th know that the security controls were much less. It was much less restrictive. Now, I'm all for protecting passengers and making sure that you get to your destination safely. But it's just an example of using one thing or one event in order to restrict your freedoms or in order to increase security. These governments essentially create problems in order to sell you the solution. And they do so by using Trojan horses. Let's censor every child under the age of 16 because they're simply too young to be able to use the internet properly. They're going to get influenced by negative forces. That sounds great. Why would you be against that? Well, it's only good if they keep it to people under the age of 16. But the thing is, that's when they start making you verify yourself online, curtailing your freedoms, monitoring what you're doing. In Australia, they have one person who is responsible for making the decision as to what you can be exposed to online. They call this the e-safety commissioner. And this one person can decide what you interact with and what you're exposed to. Now, I could be totally wrong here, but what I learned throughout history is that if one person controls what you are exposed to, what you see, what you can interact and engage with, that's authoritarianism. Now, is Australia an authoritarian country? I'll leave that debate up to you guys in the comments below. But all these new rules and regulations, I think they come from a good place, but all they're going to be doing over the next few years is restricting your freedom and allowing these governments to tax you whether or not you're living in the country. Now, if you're making money from that country, if you've got a business in Australia, it's an online business, but you're living somewhere else, of course you have to pay tax. You should do everything by the book. But if this global taxation is going to be based purely on your nationality, that means that they're probably going to also restrict dual citizenship, which is why right now I'm trying to attain as many citizenships as possible. And you should too. This way, at least you get to pick and choose who you're paying tax to, rather than just based on your nationality. So what can you do about this? I don't want this video to be all doom and gloom because there are ways around it. And the way I see things is that money solves a lot of problems. And if you can achieve time, location, and financial freedom, you will at least be in a position where you will have more choice in where your taxes are paid, or where you live, or what you're able to spend your money on, or what rules you need to follow. They say Western developed countries are more free than other countries. But I tend to disagree, having lived in Southeast Asia and traveled all around the world. So if you want to achieve location freedom, the first thing you need to understand is that the only way you can be location free is by making money online. You need to have an online income stream, something that creates consistent cash flow. Ideally something that makes you tens of thousands of dollars a month, so that you can then invest that money into high growth assets. Property, businesses abroad, stocks, crypto, whatever it is, something that's going to allow you to grow your wealth. There's multiple pathways to making money online. You can be a coach, a consultant, a service provider, you can sell information, or you can just be a freelancer or a sales mercenary. Whatever it is, you have to pick a direction and go down that path. But there's multiple ways that you can do it. These are some of the things that I talk about in my community, which you can check out in a link below this video. Once you've been able to create that income stream, you then want to get residencies, citizenships, visas. This will allow you to live in different locations whenever you want, based on what's going on in the world. I bet there's a lot of people in Eastern Europe right now that are looking for places farther away from Russia. You might be living in Asia and be worried about certain big power politics. Maybe you want to get a citizenship or a residence in South America, somewhere very far away from where you think something bad can go down. When I talk about these things to the average person, they immediately think that you're a fearmonger. But history shows otherwise. There's always a war or a big event that people want to escape from. I'm just advising you to be in a position to be able to escape. Once you have those residencies, those visas, those citizenships, and you move to another location, or you have the opportunity to do so whilst living where you are currently, the next thing you want to do is invest some of your money into high growth assets, either new businesses in those markets, stocks, crypto, or even property. This way you can actually grow your wealth. Because the last thing you want to do is be location free, financially free, have a cash flow business, but not be growing your wealth because there's something bad happens, maybe the industry changes or AI just destroys the industry that you're in. Whatever it is, you want to reduce your risks. So investing in these things will at least allow you to keep afloat. So guys, let me know if you agree with this point of view. Do you think that these new rules, regulations and laws are coming from a good place? Or do you think that they're just Trojan horses that will be used as a way to restrict our freedoms. Maybe you agree with some of them and you think what I'm saying in this video is total load of nonsense. Let me know in the comments below. I really want to see your opinion on this. And if you need help creating cash flow online, or you're looking for a new place to invest your money, then check out the link in the description below this video and join the mission. It's filled with people who want to do the same thing. And as always, guys, if you've got any questions, let me know in the comments. I'm always here to answer them, and I'll see you in the next one.